Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Schultz. I am the Water Education Specialist with the California Department of Water Resources. Welcome to Water Wednesday. The mission of the California Department of Water Resources is to sustainably manage the water resources of California in cooperation with other agencies to benefit the state's people and protect, restore, and enhance the natural and human environments. For the past month, our Water Wednesday presentations have been focused on the restore part of our mission. We heard from Charlotte Biggs about Eco Restore, a program that aims to restore at least 30,000 acres of critical habitat in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. Kamyar Gavechi spoke about Flood Managed Aquifer Recharge, or FloodMAR, which aims to restore groundwater basins while also reducing flood risk. And last week, Melinda Doran took us on a virtual visit to the Salton Sea, where we learned about the Species Conservation Habitat Project and other restoration projects there aimed at protecting both human and environmental health. And if you missed any of these presentations, they were all great, and they are all available on our DWR YouTube channel on the Water Wednesday playlist. Today, we are joined by Esther Tracy, DWR's Urban Streams Restoration Program Lead. California has a lot of large rivers. You can see a couple of them on the screen behind me, but there are also hundreds, if not thousands, of small streams that flow throughout our communities. And for many years, a lot of these streams were neglected. Some of them were filled in with concrete. Some were even buried underground. But as Esther will discuss, healthy streams are a really important part of healthy communities. I'm not going to say too much more about that because this is her program and she's doing some amazing work. So I'm going to let her tell you all about that. Really quickly, before I turn things over to Esther, I'm just going to do a quick Zoom overview for anybody joining us for the first time. As you may have noticed, your cameras and your microphones are off. We ask that you leave them that way. It just helps reduce any distractions or background noise during the presentation. We really do want to hear from you. If you've joined us on Zoom, you can ask questions that you may have of Esther. So to do that, you just simply go down to the bottom of your screen, find the little box that says chat, there's a little speech bubble. You can click on that and then go ahead and send me your questions. And when Esther's done with her presentation, we will get to as many of those as possible. Lastly, we also have a captioner on hand to provide captions for the program. If you would like those on, or if they're already on and you want them off, just move your cursor over a little bit to the right from that chat button. You'll see where it says closed caption or CC, and that's your button to turn them on and off. That's pretty much it. We're all pretty familiar with Zoom, I suspect, these days. So I'm going to turn things over to Esther. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Kathy. There we go. Can everybody see my screen? I think so. We're good?
We are good.
Perfect. So hi, everybody out there in Zoom land. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Esther Tracy, and I'm an environmental scientist. I lead the Urban Streams Restoration Program here at the Department of Water Resources. The Urban Streams Restoration Program has been assisting communities for over 35 years to restore their urban streams. Our competitive grant program has funded over 270 projects throughout the state of California. So the picture that you see here is of Santa Rosa Creek, which is located in Santa Rosa. As you can see, there is an elevated parkway right here and right here that is along both sides of the stream, but you can also see some vegetation along the banks and the natural stream bed. The restoration efforts have made improvements to the water quality and the steelhead trout, a threatened species that is able to migrate within their habitat. And then the community has also been able to use this location for entertainment and exercise purposes. So what exactly is an urban stream? An urban stream is any creek that runs through a populated or urbanized area So for example, a city or a town, in many cases, these streams have been moved from their original path during the construction of roads, houses, or other buildings. Urban streams are also known for collecting a lot of stormwater or rainwater. This gives them a very flashy hydrology. Because there has been a lot of hardscaping, so a lot of concrete has been put in and cement and parking lots. The water that would naturally fall on the ground and be absorbed by the ground is being collected through gutters and pipes, and then is being transported to these creeks, and it's being released all at once. So that's why we have that flashy hydrology. As the storm water is also traveling through these pipes, it's also picking up a lot of trash and pollutants. So all these changes that we're seeing here have caused, excuse me, I'm trying to turn off the laser pointer here, have caused a decrease in the natural habitat for a lot of the native species that we would find, but it has made a real estate for a lot of native or invasive species. Not all urban streams look the same. This first image is similar to what you would find in a larger city such as Sacramento, LA, or even San Diego. This right here is a section of Morrison Creek in Sacramento. If you notice, it's a trapezoidal channel having very steep earthen banks that are covered with grass. What do I mean by earthen banks? It means that it is earth that has been highly compacted, so it makes it very sturdy, but it doesn't allow a lot of plants to grow there, but it makes it stable for when we have that flashy hydrology. And the other aspect of this creek is that it has been lined with concrete. This second image is of San Luis Obispo Creek. This stream is partially concrete lined as well. Do you notice where the people are walking? That is concrete there, but there's a bottom section that allows water to go through that also has concrete. The shallower sections of this creek only get water during large storm events, but that's why the bank has a lot more sediment, and there are more shade trees that are able to grow along that sediment. This third image is of Cordova Creek. You can see that the banks have been lowered and aren't as steep as those from Morrison Creek. They have also been planted with willows to help stabilize the banks, and it has a much larger floodplain. So what do I mean by floodplain? The floodplain is that area of low-lying ground that is next to the water body, like this stream or river, and it is meant to be flooded. And this example here, this last one, is of Pewter Creek. Out of all the examples that I showed you today, this is the most natural looking stream. It has a large floodplain, and you can see different sized gravel and a multi-story vegetation that is growing along the banks. What you can't see in this picture is that the path, there's a path for the community to do exercise or enjoy. This path gets flooded during high events, during high stormwater events, and it's meant to do that. When we're looking for projects to fund, our program is generally looking for projects that prevent or fix these issues, the flooding issues, and we want projects that help restore the habitat and ecology of the streams. And that's why we want to include the community. We want our project partners to teach their community about the importance of urban streams and about their specific project that is being restored. And I've been throwing out some terms out there that not everybody understood, and I hope that I'm gonna explain some of these better here. So why are urban streams important? Urban streams are important and characterized because they have a riverine ecosystem and they have a unidirectional water flow. That means that the water is traveling in one direction and it's traveling downhill. As the water is flowing over the terrestrial ecosystem, it is picking up some nutrients and small particles of sand and silts and pebbles that are called sediment. So another key feature about the urban stream is that it's transporting sediment from the eroding banks and is depositing them downstream when the water slows down. So they are creating floodplains downstream. Urban streams are also connecting floodplains. Some of these characteristics provide habitat for aquatic animals, reptiles, insects, and floodplain plants. These plants then provide habitat for the terrestrial ecosystem that includes birds, reptiles, and mammals. Some reptiles form a bridge between the aquatic ecosystem and the terrestrial ecosystem because they depend on both the water and the land for habitat and food. This is a very basic example that I'm going to provide here. So salmon are a type of anadromous fish. This means that they are born in freshwater and migrate to the ocean until they are mature and ready to spawn. When a salmon is returning to spawn from the ocean, they will travel hundreds of miles to lay their eggs in the creek that they spawned in. When they pass, animals such as the raccoon will take their carcasses away from the water's edge and consume them. When they do this, they're helping spread some of the nutrients that are normally found only in the ocean. These nutrients are then taken up by the plants and the trees, which then provide shade and habitat for other animals. So it's a very complex loop. Urban streams also transport water to rivers. Springs, creeks, and urban streams create a network of waterways called tributaries that also connect to larger rivers and transport the water to the ocean. Urban streams also provide recreational opportunities for humans. People have been using streams for years. They've been swimming in them, kayaking in them, or even fishing. So now we're going to talk about restoration. Restoration is the action of returning something from its original condition. So basically, we're trying to fix or repair the creek and the ecosystem around it. The most common type of restoration we see is the widening of channels and adding features that increase the habitat for the different species there. Invasive species are generally removed and replaced with native grasses, shrubs, and trees. Plants that are native to California grow along the streams and are more adapted to quickly changing conditions. Many of the grasses that grow along the stream banks have long roots. These roots help stabilize the stream banks that help prevent erosion. So remember how I talked about water picking up silts and sediment a few slides ago? Well, that was erosion. These native plants also provide food and shelter for a wide variety of animals. Some of the other types of restorations we have seen is delighting a stream. So delighting happens when a buried stream is physically uncovered or removed from pipes and culverts and is exposed to the daylight. We can also remove structures or old dams that are no longer needed and allow fish passage and allow other water to flow freely. We've also seen some stream cleanups and removal of old trash that's in our streams and providing pollution. So here we're going to talk about one of the restoration projects that we did through our partners. So this one right here is Rohner Creek. This example of restoration was funded through the Urban Streams Restoration Program. Rohner Creek is located in the city of Fortuna, so in Humboldt County. Historically, Rohner Creek flowed through a riparian forest. As the city expanded, the large trees were removed and additional water started to flow through the channels from the impermeable surfaces. Those are those concrete surfaces I talked about earlier. In the 1950s, a section of the creek was realigned with 12th Street, and this caused the stream to be disconnected from its normal floodplain. So this project increased the capacity of the creek so that it could convey a 100-year storm event. What does that mean? So the term 100-year storm event is not saying that the place will only flood once in 100 years. It means that there is a 1 in 100, so a 1% chance of flooding happening any given year. This may not sound like much, but the way probability works is that in a 30-year period, there's actually a 25% chance of a flood happening in this particular section. In order to make the creek be able to handle the 100-year event, they widened the channel and they reconnected the creek to its historical floodplain. The project also created a side channel that would allow a place for fish to rest during high flow events. So I'm going to show you this yellow highlighted area is the area where the channel was widened and reconnected to this floodplain. So in this image, you can see the direction of water flowing during the storm events. These arrows here show you where the water flows when it's during high storm events. This section here in the bright green line is where the marker is for the 100-year event. So the objective of the project was to get this water flowing up here and flooding these houses to go within this area where we have the channels formed so that it can transport that water safely and no longer flood the homes and businesses. This image is after the construction of the bank grading, but before the revegetation efforts took place. If you look at the right-hand side of the creek, over here, this is where the side channel was created for the fish refugia during high flow events. In this section of the channel, the water is much calmer, which gives that fish the much needed area for rest during migrations in and out. And it also allows little bugs, so aquatic invertebrates, to hide, but those generally become fish food. See these large tree trunks along the bank? Those are referred to as large woody debris. They are important to the stream ecosystem because they can change the flow of the water and can help reshape the stream. The large woody debris can cause the water to slow down, which also allows nutrients to drop out and sediment, which then prevents flooding from happening downstream. This is a section further down. You can see where the floodplain has been marked with different colored flags. Each color represents to a different size and species of native plant. The project restored a multi-story riparian habitat along the section. So plants that are more adapted to wetlands were placed along the closest edge, and these are closest edge to the water. These include tall flat sedges, northern giant horsetails, elk blue or salmon berries, and dwarf roses. Along the upper edges, there was a mixture of non-stemmed plants, so herbaceous plants. We also planted shrubs and larger trees. This is the image after the construction and revegetation. This is roughly about 1 year after the planting was done. When the project team went out to remove the invasive species that had started to grow, they wanted to make sure that they had allowed room for the native plants to stay and not to be outcompeted. And they wanted to continue to enhance this area. During the post-construction surveys, the team observed gravel recruitment in the form of riffles, mid-channel, and point bars with the channel that had the large woody debris. And the riffles are important for salmon because that's generally where they like to spawn. By reconnecting this floodplain, they were able to reactivate it, meaning that it got flooded during much smaller events. So doing a large-scale restoration is hard, but that's why we're creating partnerships in this. Many of our projects rely on our volunteers and project partners to help maintain these sites after they have been restored. This is a picture that was taken during the Sacramento Creek Week in the spring of 2018. So this is pre-COVID. Our volunteers helped us remove over 300 pounds of trash that had accumulated in a 1-mile section of Morrison Creek. You don't have to wait till the official Creek Week to help your local stream. There are many organizations that organize creek cleanups events or even ocean cleanup days. They're always looking for volunteers, but an even simpler way that you can help these streams is by picking up any trash that you see along the road, especially if they're near gutters. Generally, like I said, the gutters get, when there's a storm event, the gutters collect a lot of that trash and they eventually make it out to the streams. So it's very important to help out every little way you can by cleaning up the trash. But with that, that is my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
All right, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we've got a couple of questions here.
Okay.
One of them is, do storm drains and storm gutters flow into the urban creeks?
Repeat that, please.
Do storm drains and storm gutters, when you see it, like the side of the road where it says drains to creek or drains to the river, those flow into the urban streams as well?
Yes, especially there are certain placards I know here, especially in Sacramento, where they have a little fish symbol and that shows you that it flows directly into the creek. So anything you dump down, oil, trash or anything like that, makes it straight into the stream. So it's very important to make sure you're being mindful of that. To my knowledge, we don't have any facilities that clean up the stormwater before they make it to the stream. Mm-hmm. So yes, a lot of them flow directly to the streams.
How many creeks are you currently working on? I think you said at the beginning you've done about 270 over the course of the program.
Yeah, so since the Urban Streams Restoration Program began, we have funded over 270 projects. We are currently, we just ended a solicitation in 2019 and we awarded 11 projects. So 11 creeks are being restored or are in the process of being designed for restoration in this current solicitation.
Okay. And how many years have you been working on these?
So these ones right now, we just started.
Sure.
We do have other ones. So we had a solicitation, and what I mean by solicitation is, like I said, it's a competitive grant program. Mm-hmm. So we open a solicitation. So we ask project partners to send in different projects and they're graded. Those that are awarded get money for the restoration. So our last solicitation prior to 2019 was in 2012. Mm-hmm. With that one, we still currently have 7 projects that are being worked on. So you can see that some of these projects take a very, very long time to design and complete.
Okay, that's great. What are some of the native plants that are best to plant around the urban streams?
It all depends. There are certain, so we have different types of streams, mm-hmm. Some that flow year round, so perennial streams, and then we have some ephemeral or intermittent streams. If you plant trees such as willows along an intermittent or ephemeral stream, it may not be the best because they are very thirsty plants. Mm-hmm. They rely on a lot of water. So it all depends. Generally, a lot of our native grasses are good to plant along the banks, but it all depends on where these sites are. California is very diverse in climate. So we have Humboldt area, so the northern area that has a lot of precipitation and it has a much cooler climate. A lot of the plants are more adapted for that. And then we have plants that are more adapted for drier conditions, like in San Diego or even Sacramento.
Got it. If people wanted to find out where the headwaters are for their local creek or for a particular stream, is there somewhere they can go to find that out?
You can always email us. Our email for information is usrp@water.ca.gov, and we can help you with that. There's a lot of resources online. USGS has different hydraulic unit, hydraulic unit. I don't remember what the C stands for. I apologize. But they have different regions, and you can look at how the water is all connected. Generally, it starts at the mountains. We also have the State Water Board and DWR. We have different resources that can help you locate that information.
Great. Once people have found that information, what can they do to help with the urban stream restoration? Or even if they don't find out where the headwaters are, what can people do to help with these sorts of projects?
So the first thing I would do is go on your internet, whatever search engine you want to do, and type in creek restoration near me. We have all sorts of different project partners. So our program relies on one large entity and one NGO, so non-governmental organization or a nonprofit, to form that partnership to do this stream restoration. And there are all sorts of different ones. Unfortunately, there is no one list that shows all the different people doing restoration work throughout California. So you could just type it into your internet searcher and you would get some information that way. Or you could email me, like I said, I'll be happy to help you with your particular region.
Great. And then you said the monies that your program provides, those come from bonds that the voters approve. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we are a bond-funded program. What that means is there are different bonds that come up. I think the last one was in 2018, which was Proposition 68. It gave our program $10 million to do restoration. We do have a cap of $1 million per project. So that only really allows us to do 10 projects if we're giving away the entire $1 million to each project. So that limits how many projects we can fund. In certain cases, they don't ask for the full amount, or it's just a small restoration and they're not asking for the full amount. But yes, we are very limited by that bond funding.
Got it. And but some of these other nonprofit organizations, you mentioned they have other sources of funding or they can bring things together. So yours isn't the only program in the whole state.
Correct. Yeah. So we're a small program. There are different federal grants that are doing restorations. The State Water Board as well has different programs to help with that. And I believe EPA, so the state EPA, California EPA, has stream restoration funds.
So this might be a little bit like asking somebody who their favorite kid is, but do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
So my baby right now is the Morrison Creek project. That is a very grassroots project, meaning that the community all came together, decided that they wanted access to their streams. So right now, the Morrison Creek project was that first one I showed you that had those trapezoidal banks. So there are fences around that. So the community is not able to even walk along the edges. So the community wanted access to it, to walk around the edges. But then we started to really dream big and see what we could do. And there are plans to do restoration work there. It will never look like the image behind me, unfortunately. It is very, very constrained. We have houses right next to it, but we're going to try to make it the best that we can by allowing there to be some natural vegetation. So that's my baby at the moment, you could say.
All right. So you might still love your older kids too, but that's your baby.
Of course. I mean, images like the one behind me are what brings me tons of joy. You know, that's the Carmel River project. That was funded in 2012. It's always beautiful to go out there and walk around an area that has been restored, and you get to really see the difference when you go down there and you see when the construction's happening and there's mud and dirt and it doesn't look like anything good. But then you go back when they've planted it and you compare and you get to see what it was before and then the afters, and it just really is really inspiring to see. And of course, you have to love those projects.
Yeah. And I think there's been a return of salmon to the Carmel Creek since you've
Yes,
done that, right?
yes, yes. So a lot of our projects focus on improving the habitat for salmon. Salmon are extremely important. Like I was saying, they're the one of the many connections that we have of bringing those nutrients from the ocean all the way to our mountains. If you're out in the mountains, generally you will see a lot of rocks and there's some water, but there isn't a lot of plants because it is a very harsh environment. But these streams allow the nutrients from the ocean to be connected because of the fish and make it all the way to the mountains. It's a beautiful cycle, really.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Esther, for joining us today. I could keep chatting with you about this because I think it's such a great program, but we are at 1:30, so I'd like to say thank you to everybody who joined us from home as well. If you would like to learn more about DWR or our urban stream restoration program, please visit our website, and the email contact address is on the website as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So you can contact Esther if you're interested in learning more about how you can get started in your local community. We also provide free education materials. If you have children or you work with them as a teacher, a scout leader, a summer camp instructor, you can visit water.ca.gov/education-materials and put in an order for those, and we're more than happy to send those to you. To keep abreast of projects like the creek restorations, the stream restorations, and other things DWR is doing, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on LinkedIn as well. And we also have a lot of videos on YouTube. I mentioned at the beginning, you can see our previous Water Wednesdays on YouTube, but there's a lot more there from our incredibly talented video team who helps produce these Water Wednesday programs. We will be wrapping up Water Wednesdays in May before we take a little bit of a summer break, but we do have a great lineup of speakers for that month. We'll be talking about California's human right to water and water equity and access. So we really hope that you will join us for our presentations in May. I'd like to thank everybody again for coming today, and I hope you have a great week.